What is up, geeks of YouTube? Welcome back to Our Fantasy Life, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night for Nintendo Switch. Now, first off, I'm a little late to the party with my review here. I really wanted to believe that all of the big reviewers that just weren't giving this game a chance, and that if they spent some time with the game, they would see all of the good things about it. Now, I will admit that the Switch version is a little bit rough around the edges in some parts, but I think I was right, and the game is nowhere near as bad as some reviewers are making it out to be. But let's really dive in on this one. Now, we'll get into the details in a bit, but before we get too far into the review, I do have to say, I haven't played the game on Steam, Xbox One, or PS4. I've only played it on the Switch for about 4.5 hours in docked mode and about 5 hours in handheld mode, just to kind of compare the two. So let's get this out of the way right up front. In docked mode on the Switch, there's a few issues with load times and things like that. We'll talk about those a little bit later in the review, but I do want to get that out of the way, is that I have experienced some of the issues. They're nowhere near as major as some people are making them out to be. So first off, there is a lot to love about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. This game actually surprised me a little because, full disclosure, I've never really been a Castlevania fan. I played a little bit of the 3DS installments. Specifically, I spent a lot of time on Aria of Sorrow, but none of the Castlevania games really grabbed me. Bloodstained, however, makes me wonder if I was just kind of missing something back then, because it really has a lot of good stuff in it. So let me take a minute and just kind of gush about all that good stuff. Now, I've got to start with the voice acting. The voice acting is super well done for a game in this genre. The artwork and the character designs are well done. The world building is actually really interesting. The level design seems very thoughtful and challenging without being overly punishing. Miriam, the main character, I feel like she has the potential to carry a franchise. She has a really interesting backstory, and when you're playing her, she controls and feels really good. She controls well. I actually found myself really interested in the storyline and kind of anxious to get to the next cutscene, which I don't really find on Metroidvania games. I usually kind of just skip through those. Now, with the voice acting, Erica Lindbeck plays Miriam, while David Hayter voices Zangetsu, and both do a really phenomenal job with the material. The rest of the voice cast plays their roles really well as well, and like I said, while I usually kind of find myself itching for that skip button, I actually kind of got caught up in Miriam's story, and I found myself wanting more of the world building, which was a good feeling. I liked the concept of the shard binders and how they draw their powers from the demons they kill, and I like that it gives you this kind of meta reason to grind a little bit and to kill demons, because you never know when they're going to drop a shard. So it gives you kind of a reason to continue through the leveling process, which is really cool. And I've been kind of taking my time with the game a little bit here because going forward, our channel is not going to solicit review copies. We are buying our copies retail. So I figured I would just take my time with it. And I found myself really, really interested in the gameplay, this kind of grindy gameplay loop. I also really like the weapon selection and the amount of gear you can find and equip. I'm kind of a sucker for customization. I really like it when you can put on a piece of gear and see it affect your character in the game. And Miriam can equip certain accessories, scarves, headpieces, foot weapons, and regular weapons that will kind of change up her look. And then later in the game, you actually get costumes as well, which are kind of cool. Now, while the two games are very different, the level of customization kind of reminded me of Bayonetta in a way, where you can put on different costumes and weapons and things like that, and it really changes up the gameplay. I really loved the customization in Bayonetta, and I really love it here as well. I think it's really, really well done, and it's really well integrated into the game. Now, there are also special weapons that you can collect in the game by getting 8, 16, and 32-bit coins that you can then trade in. There's little Easter eggs there, like there's a fire whip, and there's like a purple lightsaber that really add to the game's appeal without sort of like, bringing in a whole different universe and like kind of breaking the game. It just kind of felt really cool to see these little nods to other franchises. The other thing I liked about the game is it's a lot larger than you might think when you first fire it up. So, like I said, I'm about, story-wise, I think I'm about 5 hours in, and I've really only explored about 13% of the map and killed one boss. I've got hours ahead of me. So I do like the fact that as you kind of power through the game, Miriam gets stronger and the game sort of reveals itself to you. It doesn't give you a bunch of things right at the start. A good example I can think of is Breath of the Wild, where at the start of the game, you pretty much have all of the abilities that you're going to get. And then it's just how you use those abilities, what better weapons you can get. Bloodstained seems to take the opposite approach, and it starts you off really small, and then it starts to kind of reveal itself to you as you gain in power and levels and things like that. So later on, Miriam can get shards that completely change her gameplay style. You can get familiars that join her in battle. You can summon, like flying pigs and rats that explode and all kinds of stuff. So it feels really cool to kind of experiment with these shards and level them up. Now, one thing I do have to mention is at the start of the game, most of the shards kind of seemed either like hard to use, or some of them even seemed completely useless. But as you level them up, you can really generate some devastating effects, and learning how to use the shards effectively together, I think actually it turned into one of the most fun things for me just in the few hours that I've played. You can also increase your weapon proficiencies with certain shards. I got one that increases her sword skills, which is really cool. I saw another one in a review that gives her club attacks more damage. The customization seems like it can get pretty extensive. So I would say that Bloodstained is kind of a slow burn type of game that, shows more of itself to you the more you play. So people that just pick it up and maybe only play it for 2 or 3 hours and try to do a review on it, maybe there's some stuff that they're kind of missing there. There's a lot of good here. So let's talk about the graphics. A lot of other reviewers have been doing graphics comparisons between the Switch version and either the PS4 or the Steam versions. So I've got to say, yeah, the comparisons sort of show that the PS4 or Steam or Xbox One versions have better graphics, of course. But this isn't really a compelling topic for me, simply because the Switch is my main console. I didn't have any plans to pick up the game on Steam or any of these other platforms. So just taken on its own, the game actually looks and plays really good for a 2.5D platformer on the Switch. And I mean, it doesn't have a ton of competition, but it looks and plays really, really good at 30 frames per second. It's smooth. It's enjoyable to look at. There's some really cool lighting effects. There's not quite as many particle effects as there are in some of the other games, but like I said, if you're not comparing them side by side, it actually does look really cool. Now, there's some compromises that have been made on the Switch version, but if you want to play on the go, this version is absolutely playable in its own right. So I wouldn't let that influence your decision. Now, if you do only want to play it at home, maybe check out the Steam version, maybe check out the console version. But like I said, if you want to take it with you on the go and kind of keep that gameplay going, the Switch version is fine in that respect. Now, I do have to mention, there are some polish issues with the game. So, for example, in just the few hours that I've been playing, I already kind of experienced some typos. Like in one of the dialogue boxes, the word sketch was spelled S-C-E-C-H. There were some blank areas of text where the text doesn't match up with what the character is saying, or there's just words that are completely missing. These kind of take you out of the game a little bit, but they're forgivable. This was a Kickstarter project, so I'm sure the development team will get those patched out. But the minute we talk about patches, I do have to mention a couple of issues that I've had. So this kind of does bring me to the elephant in the room. The Switch version of the game does seem to have more issues than some of the other platforms. Now, I've heard about some issues on the PS4 version, but like I said, I didn't play that one. So I did notice some really, really long load times when moving between certain rooms. And it's weird because one room that you walk into that's got a ton of enemies, you would think would take forever to load, and it'll load right away. And then you'll walk into another room with nothing in it, and it'll take forever to load. So there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to that. I had a couple of weird freezes in combat where I'd be trying to attack something and the game would just freeze for a second. These really didn't break the game for me. They were kind of a little irritating here and there, but they happened so infrequently that I would barely notice. I wouldn't let that influence your purchasing decision if you really want to get this on the Switch. I've been sinking hours and hours and hours into this game, and I've really been enjoying my time with it. I plugged it into the dock to capture some footage, and I didn't bump into any of the issues that people were talking about. To wrap it up, I guess what I would say is kind of buyer beware on this one. If you really want to play it on the go, it's playable as it is on the Nintendo Switch. Now, the development team has committed on Twitter to bringing some patches to the game to improve stability, to maybe lock that frame rate a little bit more. But I would say the game is playable as it is, with a couple little minor tweaks here and there. I think it'll be phenomenal. But I would say if graphics are important to you, if that 60 frames per second is important to you, then I might wait and pick it up on the PS4, the Xbox, or the Steam version, because those do have better graphics, with, of course, the Steam version being kind of the top of the pile there. But if, like me, you're a Switch main and you kind of want that flexibility of playing it either on the go or being able to dock it at home, I would say that the Switch version is a recommended buy for me. You can pick it up now, play it as it is, and I think you'll have an enjoyable experience. And then that experience is just going to get better as the developers spend more time on it. Now, something else that I saw on Twitter is that the Switch version apparently outsold all other versions of the game combined. So my feeling is that developers are really going to put a lot of effort into the Switch version. So it may be worth it to wait for a little bit, but if you were asking me today if I would recommend you pick up Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and play it on Switch, absolutely, I would give this a thumbs up. So that's my review of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. What do you guys think? Have you picked up Bloodstained yet? Are you waiting to see what the developers do to it? Let me know down in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going, because I would love in like a month or 2 months to come back and do an updated review and say all of these issues, the typos, the minor loading glitches, the stability, the freezing, things like that have been 100% fixed, and the game is absolutely flawless. But as it stands right now, there's a couple of little things that I would have to call out before making my recommendation. So thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw in this video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. And let me know down in the comments what you guys thought. Really would love to hear from you guys on this one. But until next time, I have been Damien. This has been Our Fantasy Life, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.